Hi everyone, welcome to the SoccerBeat podcast. We're talking Mamelodi Sundowns this evening, and just finished a very nice 3-1 victory over Durban City. Shakes, a nice performance from your team. All the possession that we've seen in previous games, which has been up in the 70s, 80%, but tonight we saw a lot more chances created. I think it was 11 shots on target, 6 in the first half, 5 in the second half. Much more penetration to the play. Quite a nice attacking lineup put out as well. Sales, Tashreeq Matthews, and Rayners together. What did you make of the game? I think more like your real Sundowns tonight, right?
Definitely more like your real Sundowns tonight. Much more happier tonight with the performance, A lot of players came to the party today as well. The likes of your Tashreeq. I thought he had a great game. I thought also Rayners, sniper as usual, reminds me of Mambush, the way he scores his goals, But just a more fluid game from Sundowns, a more confident game and against a very strong Durban City team that will give a lot of problems to a lot of teams. So I'm really happy with today's performance. I really can't complain. Much more fluid, happy with today's game.
Yeah, Coach, Durban City are no pushovers. They played well in the first half. They caused some problems at the back for Sundowns. Although, to be fair, some of those problems for Sundowns were self-inflicted, like the Cupido back pass and one or two moments like that. And of course, Ron Williams saved a penalty, but it's almost expected at this stage. But to come through against a team that started the season so well, Gavin Hunt's got a tune out of this team very quickly. It's a very good 3 points to respond to Sekakuna's 2 big wins this week as well.
Well, it was a breath of fresh air. I mean, we know Sundowns to be a team that dominate possession. They had more than 600 passes, but just not the passes, Grant. The way they occupy the spaces between the lines, the way they occupy the spaces between the half spaces, the runs over the ball, it was always third man movement. It was good, brisk, quality passing. And just that when Mokoena is on form, this team plays. And tonight, Mokoena was that man. They started with 3 at the back, but Mokoena pushes into the midfield. Allende drops in. They free up Modiba on the left. They free up Muda on the right. Now suddenly they have Matthews and Allende. No, Matthews and Sales supporting the 2 front players in the form of Rayners and Lukaku. So it was very offensive in nature. But what I liked as well is they defended so well. Often we don't speak about Sundowns' defensive qualities. They're marking in advance. They're great anticipation. When you play high-risk football, like they did tonight, they had basically central defenders in rest defense with Williams. Yet, with that in mind, obviously the risk of being counted was there. We saw Durban City, and then this just shows the quality of Gavin Hunt. He realized that they will push numbers forward, and we will catch them on the break. Unfortunately for him, they didn't score the penalty. It could have been different. But you must compliment Sundowns for this performance. When Sundowns plays as well as this, it gives, football in the country such a great buzz, because now it wasn't a fluke that we saw last season. It was just a poor start. It was just internal problems. It was just problems behind the scenes that we are not privy to. But it's nice to see a Sundowns team playing with such confidence. They dominated the game, and I was very impressed. I enjoyed every moment.
Yeah, and you speak about Gavin Hunt. He's often caused problems for Sundowns in the past with SuperSport, usually with a good game plan. And Sundowns maybe surprised him a bit today by playing Lukaku and Sales as those two 10s. It was more like that 4-2-2-2, with a boxing midfield there. And as you say, those half spaces were really well occupied. Shakes, do you think this is maybe the shape to use going forward? So instead of playing Adams and Allende and Mokoena, you just play 2 of them deep, and then you have 2 10s there. It's a bit more like what we saw with Pizza Mosamane at one stage. He was using Zwane and Sereno as 10s. Do you think that's maybe the way to go at the moment with the squad? There aren't really wingers to call upon, so maybe a narrow shape is working better.
Yeah, definitely. I think they both had a good game, today. Lukaku, you can see it coming to his game, with more game time. And Sales as well, I thought Sales has now become the most reliable player for Sundowns, in terms of his performances. And I still think he's not even at his 5th gear. I think he can still shift gear and get into even a higher gear, So very happy with that type of setup. A bit narrow, close passing game, they're more compact in terms of their parking. I think Coach Farouk spoke about it last game, that we're so far apart in terms of the play, you know. But this time they were close together, you know, and you could see the confidence in the passing, and Lukaku creating problems, you know, in terms of his passing, firm passing, confident passing, you know, more like the Sundowns, we know. So I'm very happy with the structure of the team.
Yeah, Coach, I wanted to ask you about Tashreeq Matthews, just as an individual player. You know, he's pushing towards his mid-20s now, and he's never had a Bafana cap. Last year he came in, he was right up amongst the top assist providers in the PSL. This season, the top assist provider in the league. He set up Marcelo Allende's goal today. Yes, we know his finishing needs to improve. I think we've all spoken about if he could finish, you know, he would get a lot of goals because he gets into good positions. What do you make of him as a player? And he's playing like quite high up now next to Rayners. Do you think this is a player not only that can maybe replace Zwane in the years to come, but also maybe in Bafana? You know, Hugo Broos is trying a lot of players there. Masandawana, he's caught up a few guys, even Shabalala. You think Matthews possibly could be someone you should be looking at?
Well, definitely. I think Matthews is a phenomenal player. You know, you don't get to the Bundesliga by accident, Grant. You know, he made his mark there at Dortmund. He showed that he has the pedigree, came to South Africa. Very, very unassuming. If you look at his physicality, you'll think he's an easy pushover. But I just want to revert back to the goal that him and more so Rayners. Rayners was phenomenal with that second goal. He engineered it. And it's not often that we see Sundowns that effective on the counter-attack. And the way these two guys linked up, it was a goal to marvel. You know what I mean? It's one of the best goals I've seen this season, based on the fact that there was so much that needed to be done. And the way they engineered that goal, even the finish, you know, we spoke about his finishing. He kept his cool. He waited to see where the keeper was positioned. He picked his spot and side-footed it. Fantastic goal. So, yeah, I think he's definitely a player that's going to make a huge impact this season on the way Sundowns do in the league and in CAF. And I think him just playing in behind the likes of Rayners, and sometimes like they did today with the Clarko pushing two men up high, that can cause any team problems, because both him and Saleh are no slouches. They're very comfortable on the ball. They can pass the ball well. They can score goals from any range. So I think that 4 players up front is going to keep a lot of teams guessing. Really, really difficult to defend against.
Yeah, and just before we look forward to the game in midweek against Golden Arrows, Sundowns did sign a player yesterday. Jody Arshink's been signed from Cape Town City, a striker, South Africa under-20s international. Shakes, we spoke a little bit, you know, are there players in the local league they can bring in? They've gone and signed him. They're straight away going to loan him out to Tuks for the season. Do you think that's a smart move? I want to compare it maybe a bit to Luke Bartman, who's gone to Chiefs. You know, if Chiefs had loaned him out some way, he would be already developing. Now he's kind of having to wait for his chance in a big squad. That seems like a sensible move from Sundowns. They get a good young striker in nice and early when his price hasn't shot up. Do you think that's a smart move?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a smart move. I think it's a good signing. But yeah, looking at the squad this season, you'll have to wait for his turn, you know. So I think the loan move definitely a good one. You know, you've got Shalulile, you've got Motiba up front there. You've got Rayners, who's consistent. So, yeah, I think for him to get that game time, get his confidence, score goals, you know, and when he's ready to join the big boys, I think he'll get his opportunity. But right now, yeah, up front, there's a lot of competition at Sundowns. You know, Shalulile is hardly getting an opportunity to play right now, and he's amongst the top goal scorers in the PSL era. So, yeah, it's a bit tough right now to be in that Sundown striking force.
Yeah, and it does seem like Teboho Mokoena, when he does play, it seems to be looked at as one of the front options, more of a central, speedy player instead of an old-school winger. So it makes sense to loan him out. Coach, Sundowns play Arrows in midweek. Arrows 3 defeats in a row. Would you stick with a similar team? Do you think Cardozo is going to keep rotating a little bit in some areas? You know, getting another win on the board would be a good result. He's playing against the former Sundowns coach who's going to have a big point to prove, and I think got a draw against Sundowns last year, so it can definitely upset the odds. Would you change the side up a bit, or do you think it's now about just playing and playing and playing, getting that new shape really ingrained in the team?
Well, I think it's early. I don't believe at this time you should make too many changes. I think you make changes either if it's tactical, or if there's injuries. There hasn't been any injuries. You know, they made 5 substitutes in the second half, and the team didn't look out of its depth. You know, they still kept on attacking. So Sundowns is a team with so much quality that when you make a change, it's hardly visible. I mean, you bring in Adams, for example, he does a job. Maybe not as well as I would say Elende did, but he did a job. And similarly with some of the other subs that he brought in. I think he'll start with the strong squad that he did tonight and maybe do what he did tonight by bringing in subs at an appropriate time, depending on how the game evolves. But yeah, I think, Sundowns look very, very sharp. You spoke about loaning players. I think it's a good practice when you take youngsters, get them game time, and maybe Chiefs should do the same with Gulabin and the other boys that they've just signed lately. Simply because if they don't get game time, they don't improve. Koza is doing well. He's basically in the squad at Sundowns. I think the other players like Mabena and them have just looked good at there. And we saw tonight that Mabena also has a lot of potential going forward. I mean, he made some phenomenal runs. So this is good for the team because now they're planning ahead. They're planning 2 or 3 seasons down the line. When these youngsters come to a stage of, I would say, maturity, they'll be ready to be slotted in. And good planning on the part of Sundowns.
Yeah, so everyone in the comments, let us know what you think of that signing. Also, we've got 2 days left of the transfer window. So by Monday night, the window will be shut. The next game will be with the squad for the first half of the season. So if you think there's anyone Sundowns should make a late move for, we know they've often grabbed players on deadline day. Put a comment in there. Say you'd like to see come to the door, whether local or foreign player. Thanks so much for joining me, Coach and Shakes. We'll chat soon.